This is an overview of how studio photography works using a lot of different technology. When it comes to a studio, there's some basic stuff. So number one, you need a camera. We've got a camera right here. Number two, you need a trigger. That's what this is. The trigger goes on top of the camera. Sometimes it connects in different ways. And then you need a receiver of some sort, or as we have in our studio, a flash unit, a strobe, we call it, that actually can connect remotely to that. So I'm going to show you how all those work today together. So number one, you have your camera here. I'm going to jump to this screen just so you can kind of see what I'm working with here. This is an A6400 by Sony. This is what we have. Quick note that if you were to try to use our triggers with cameras that aren't Sony's, they won't work, because this on the back where it says S, that is because it's a Sony product, meaning it will connect with these little things to the Sony hot shoe. It's really nice because that makes it more specifically connected and makes it more reliable. So first things first, when you have your camera, you're going to therefore put this in the hot shoe. Now, when you do that, you're going to slide it in there. It should go in fairly easily. And then there's a little lock here. It says lock. We're going to rotate that, and now it's locked in there. So it should be nice and stable. When you turn on the camera, you will notice that on the camera, no flash shows up. So that tells us that it doesn't recognize that there's a strobe transmitter connected to this. So what we need to do is on the right side of the transmitter, we need to turn this on. Please make sure to turn this off. These don't realize when they're turned on, they will just kill the battery. So we have to turn it on to start. Then we can look on top, and it's illuminated blue because it's sometimes darker in your studio, so that's why they do that. But then here, what you'll notice is you can barely see it here. It's going to autofocus on my finger, but I'll move my finger. There's a little lightning bolt with an orange dot on the screen. That means it recognizes that there's a flash set. And that's really important because I'm going to switch my display here so you can kind of see it a little bit better. Because then it allows us to kind of understand what we're doing as far as like different functions here. But I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so the first things first with this, again, on our trigger, this gives us a whole bunch of interesting information. So if we look at it here, it is channel 2 right here. If you are ever curious, usually I will set these to whatever channel is written in gray Sharpie here, but obviously if students or someone uses them, that might be changed. If you need to change the channel, what you have to do is go down to this where it's kind of in blue. These menus are for these corresponding kind of like blue highlighted areas, just as these buttons are for all of these different buttons. Okay, so I need to go to channel, and if I click this, it goes blue, and notice it's changed to this like zoom function. That's because the first part of it is ZM, so I don't want that. So to get to channel, I have to actually hold it down. And once I hold it down, notice up at the top, it's changed to channel 02 is illuminated. And then I can rotate this wheel down here. And I could go to, I waited too long. I could go then to channel 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever I want to do. Now I'm going to set it back to channel 2 because that's what we want. Then I'm going to click this or just leave it and it'll be fine. I can click this little back arrow and go back to my thing. So I'm on channel 2. Then you'll notice I have AM. It says here BM. C is nothing. D is nothing. E is nothing. All of these are your groups. So anytime you're using your flash, you can have different groups. So quite literally, you could add like 4 or 5 strobes to one group, or one strobe to one group, or no strobes to no groups. This gives you a ton of freedom because, as we've learned in class, if you want to have different kind of illuminations, rather than having to reset your lights every time, you can basically set up all of your strobes around the classroom or the space wherever you're working. And then you can set every strobe to a different channel or multiple strobes to different channels, depending on the look you want. So if you've planned out your shoot, this is really, really helpful. So let's talk about kind of how that works. And to do that, I'm actually going to grab this smaller zoom. So this is a really cool battery-powered zoom. It's kind of like handheld. It looks like this. This is battery-powered, so you don't have to plug it in, which is really nice for those shoots where if you're just going around or something, you could grab this. It also has this diffusion hood. You can take it off if you want more direct light there, and then you can put it back on. So this is a super cool light that you can use for that purpose. So we have channel A, channel B. So what we're going to do to change the channels, you can tap A. It's going to illuminate. So sorry, my exposure is going to have to change here in a second. There we go. So if I hit A, it illuminates again. And what I'm going to do is click this mode button right here. And because it wasn't clicked on A, it went to multi. But again, if I click A, you'll see it highlights A. And then I can go to nothing, meaning there's no strobe on that channel. Or I can go to TTL. Now, hopefully for those of you that have been through photography, you understand that on a strobe, TTL kind of is like auto mode. So feel free to try TTL if you're not sure what to do, but it doesn't give you a ton of control. So I generally encourage you to go to manual. Now what manual is also telling you is how strong the flash is here. So this is at 1/8 power. The strongest, as those of you from photography should know, the strongest is 1/1. So if I rotate this dial, I can go to 1/1. So that's the strongest output. The weakest output is 1/128. Then if I don't want B to fire, I just hit mode and I can turn it off. So now notice it would only be channel A firing a strobe. So now let's go to our corresponding flash unit here. And I need to turn it on. And to unlock it, it says, how do you unlock it? You need to rotate this. There we go. Notice it's also on channel 1, but my connector was on channel 2. So I need to fix that. So if this is channel 1, I just look down to where it says GR and channel. That's group and channel. So I'm going to hold it down. And then it has given me this little menu. If you can't see, this is channel 1. I'm going to change that to channel 2. Click that group again. Now it's at channel 2. So it should be connected. However, the group is C. And our trigger does have a C, but we're going to change that to A. So to change that, instead of holding this button down, I just click it once. And it's going to go through. And it gives me A through E there. Okay. So now I'm on group A, channel 2. It is hoping to connect to this. We'll see what happens. Now, sometimes nothing will happen right away. But there we go. It might take 1 or 2 for it to kind of like talk to it. Now, the really cool thing about this is, among many things, is notice it already automatically changed to 1/128 power. If on here, I go to A, and I change that to, let's say, 1/8, you'll look on here, and that has changed to 1/8. So that saves you a ton of time. It used to be that you had to go around the room, you had to change the power on each lamp, and go through that whole thing. With these, all you have to do is basically dial it in on this transmitter. It talks to this flash unit, and then here you go. Boom. Okay, you have like a full-on photo studio here, which is very, very exciting. So obviously, it gets much more complicated from there. We're going to turn this off. There we go. Where you can then add, for instance, all sorts of all sorts of groups. Your channel's always going to stay the same as your transmitters, but your groups are going to be different. So the question is, why do we have different channels? Hopefully we understand that if we're in a shoot, we've done media shoots in the gym or somewhere like that, and we have multiple photographers. If each photographer's on a different channel, there's not a problem. Now, there's a couple reasons why it might actually transfer over, but generally that won't be a problem, that different photographers are on different channels. Therefore, you can have different shoots in the same location, which is hugely beneficial. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different settings you can have for a flash. So, for instance, if I go into my function here and I go up to my flash settings, I could change this to fill flash, auto flash, slow sync, or rear sync. And there's different reasons you'd want to do that. There's different functions for that. But that's something that generally, if you're having issues with your camera, you might go in and just double check that it's on fill flash. That's a pretty standard one. Now, when you're synced up to a camera on an A6400, the maximum sync speed is 1/160th of a second. So that's the limitation you have. The one time you cannot do that limitation is if you want to, you can actually go to on your flash unit, you can go to sync right here. Ooh, let me make sure you can see that. Okay, sync. Let me get as the big one. And if I click sync, it will give you this H lightning bolt. What that is called high speed sync. So with high speed sync, check this out. I can now actually extend my shutter speed. Now there's a bunch of math involved in that, but what that allows you to do basically is shoot with a higher shutter speed than the 1/60th that is the typical sync. But of course, like with all things, there's a drawback. The drawback is what it's doing is basically pulling less flash because the flash is actually kind of like strobing over time while you take the picture to give you that flash, and therefore you're getting less power when you use that flash. But again, that's a little bit more complex. The main thing to know right now is you have your transmitter connected to your camera, connected to a flash unit, and then you can start adding more flash units and creating an actual kind of like studio setup there. All right, hope that was helpful. See you later.